Hello, and welcome to the 71st in an unknown number of podcasts. The poet John Donne famously wrote that no man is an island. And yet in these days of lockdown, shielding, isolating and social distancing, it can seem that it goes against his concept of humans as social beings. I have to say that while I've been producing these podcasts, there's been a feeling that I've been working in splendid isolation. So I'm very thankful through technology to once again welcome a guest to the podcast. This is the 7th episode of Desert Island Discs, and I'm very pleased to welcome a friend and colleague from the science faculty. He's also a global internet sensation. Today's castaway is Dr Hughes. So welcome, Dr Hughes.
Oi. Hello. Thank you very much for having me. It's a nice little island, this. Quite picturesque. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome, Dr Hughes, and thank you for taking the time out to answer some questions. The first of the questions is as follows. What recordings would you choose to listen to?
So music is really quite important to me. I listen to a lot of music. If anyone's ever seen me pull up to the school in the van, then you'll probably hear it still playing after I've stopped, because sometimes I have to listen to the end of the song before I can get out and face the day. I thought long and hard about these different recordings I was allowed. I've cheated a bit because I've chosen albums, because otherwise I think with 5 tracks I might go just a bit too crazy on this beautiful island. So I've been I did think long and hard. I chose, first one is a Wild Hearts album called Fishing for Luckies, which has got some wonderful tunes on it, some of which are very long and convoluted and involved, some of which are very short and violent and fast, but all of which build in lots of melody and harmony on top of a bit of good abrasive noise. So that one it's a go-to album that I turn to whenever I think, well, I must listen to the Wild Hearts again. In the next one I chose is Public Enemy's Fear of a Black Planet. That album I've listened to. I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop in the late 80s, and this one's from the very early 1990s. And it's an album that, again, whenever I think, oh, I must listen to Public Enemy, I always go to this one, even though I think probably their first album is better than this. I seem to gravitate for this. And there's a second, the second track on this album was something that I listened to before every single one of my university exams. I got into a bit of a superstitious loop that I didn't hear. If I didn't hear Brother's Gonna Work It Out, then I would do badly in the exam. But I didn't do too badly. I did okay. It's a great album. As a bit of a punk, late 80s punk rock from Dead Kennedys, this album is called Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, and is just, I think, wonderful. Has a song called Chemical Warfare on it as well, so chemistry teachers gravitate towards things with chemistry in them. If you haven't listened to that album before, then I recommend it. It'll be for the days that I think, I'm quite glad I'm on this island on my own. No one has to bother me. I like this album. A go-to album, I listened to AC/DC since I was very little. The first album I bought ever as a 9-year-old, I think, was their album Highway to Hell. This is my favourite AC/DC album. It's called Powerage, and it's just lovely, and it kind of summarises how I feel. That album cover sometimes looks like I need an electric shock. Feels like sometimes I deserve one too. So yeah, that's my go-to AC/DC album. And then everybody needs a calm album to listen to. And this is my one. This is Morcheeba, Big Calm. And it's got a song, the opening song's called Down by the Sea. Or it might just be called The Sea, actually. But I love the sea, and I love this track. And seeing as I'm stuck on the album, on this island rather, then I think this is an album that I would listen to quite a lot on those days where I would want to be nice and calm. So 5, I cheated. I'm gonna have 6. The 6th is a real cheat because it's the anthology, so it's all the Beastie Boys tracks. Beastie Boys since about 1986 have been a band that I've always listened to. They've released some amazing albums throughout their career, and this is basically a summary of all of their bits, the best bits. They go from hip hop to punk to really noisy stuff to just beautiful chill out music, and I think all of these things would keep me as sane as I am now on this island, and I would need a lot of music to keep me as sane as I am now.
Now, I knew you'd find some way of bending the rules, but I will allow you to have the Beastie Boys anthology, if for no other reason than it features the word science in the title. It's interesting to note that in previous podcasts, people have talked about the power of music in being able to evoke memories. So it's kind of nice to hear you also mention music being used as therapy. It can, and I'm sure listeners will agree, dictate many moods, or in some cases be able to reflect the mood that we happen to be in. Lots of good choices there as well. And again, like other participants and other castaways, Dr. Hughes, you've managed to mention a band that I've never heard of before. And that's the Wild Hearts. So I may give them a listen. Moving on to the next question: which book would you read?
So books are cool. I like books. I like reading. I nearly always have some sort of popular science book on the go, and I have quite a lot of those, and I kind of revisit a few of those to use as like a reference every now and then, and just think about the stuff that I try and bring to my lessons. But in terms of novels, the only novel that I've read more than twice is Joseph Heller's Catch-22, and I think it's wonderful. It's completely bonkers, dark humour, twisted logic, just circular arguments, just wonderful things going on in there, all encapsulated in sort of putting forward a vision of the total futility of war and the craziness that ensues. And as a book, I think if I was stuck on an island on my own, it might not help with my sanity, this book, but I think it would ultimately just keep me going. Every time I've read it, I've found new little bits in it that have made me laugh and have just kept me going, wow, what a book this is. So if I'm going to be stuck there on this island, then I'll read that again, please.
Now, I must admit that I've seen the film, but I've not actually read the book. And I know that many people would quite often say that the book is much better than the film. So thanks to your review, Dr. Hughes, I'm going to add Catch-22 to my ever-growing list of books to read in the future. On to the next question. What luxury item could you not live without?
So luxury items, are a strange thing, and I thought to myself, well, I've got a CD player or some sort of music device because I've got that. I've got my book. I think I could probably live without coffee, but I'm pretty sure that I couldn't live happily without some spice in my food. So I'll take a chili plant, please. Not just dried chilies. I'll have the plant because that'll give me something to do. I have an allotment here at home, so I grow quite a lot of chilies. Yeah, and one needs a bit of fire in one's belly. So chilies for me, please. That'll be my luxury item.
Well, that will certainly add some spice to your life on the desert island. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the desert island would be the perfect growing conditions for your chili plant, but if Matt Damon can grow potatoes on Mars, then I'm sure you'll be able to figure out a way to grow chilies on your desert island. Interesting to note also that you say, just like Miss Hilditch did last week, that you could live without coffee. And you may remember, listeners, that I did put out a vote. Did you or did you not agree with Miss Hilditch? Now, I can reveal that the results back from that are that of all the people who responded, all of them disagreed with Miss Hilditch. No, don't take the comfy bed as your luxury item. Take coffee. So there you have it. Coffee, for most people, or some people at least, the luxury item on the desert island. Now then, Dr. Hughes, let's return. On your desert island, there's a large square dining table. So who would you invite to dinner on your island?
So I thought long and hard about who I might like to have for dinner. And I thought, well, there's lots of people I'd like to meet, like to chat to. But lots of people, well, I don't really want to sit down and have dinner with you. So I thought, well, the first person I thought of was this fella, Attila the Stockbroker, or John Bain. He's a kind of punk poet. He's done a bit of music, been travelling around the place, even went to Eastern Europe before anyone was really allowed to go to Eastern Europe, playing in a punk band, and then became a poet. He's also a Brighton fan, Seagull, so grew up in Sussex, near to where I grew up. So I think we'd probably get along. It'd be quite nice to have a chat with him. I'd really like to talk to this chap, Chuck D, Public Enemy. He's been touring the world and looking at life from a particular perspective for a very long time. And I think he's got some very interesting things to say, and I'd like to not only talk to him, but I'd like to hear him talk to Attila. And then the final guest for my dinner would be this chap, Tuffers. Phil Tufnell played cricket for England. He bowls the same as me. He bats the same number as me. I'm kind of a bit like him, except for I don't have quite the cricketing talent, well, anywhere near the cricketing talent of this chap. So I reckon that, those three, and hopefully they'd enjoy my company. I'd certainly like to listen to them to tell their stories and tell me what they think about life. I hope they like chili.
Well, the food at least will certainly be fiery, if not the conversation. A wonderful and eclectic group of dinner guests that you've chosen there, Dr. Hughes, and I'm certain that they would enjoy listening to you as much as you would love listening to them as well. And on to your final question now. What would be your message in a bottle?
So on this message in a bottle business, made me obviously think about the Police song, but then it also made me think about that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean about the rum being gone. That's very disappointing, that, and the rum is gone. But I think if there was an empty bottle of rum, can't think how it would have got there. I'd put in a message that said something like, "Come and get me quickly, because if you leave me alone too long on my own, then by the time you do find me, then I'll have so much to say that you'll never shut me up, and that'll be unbearable for everybody. So help, come and get me quick."
Well, I'm sure help is on the way, and let's hope they get to you quickly, because as school is partially reopening, we're going to need somebody to be keeping an eye on things. Um, that's it. That's all the questions. So thank you, Dr. Hughes, for taking part. Dear listeners, a question for you. Chilies, are they your idea of food heaven or food hell? Do please let me know in the usual way via Twitter at Chief Vicar. So there you have it. Until tomorrow's podcast, as ever, be kind, take care, and stay safe.